Hello, and welcome to the third episode of the Untitled podcast.
Hello, I'm Alaina.
I am Abigail. We have finally chosen a topic.
Yeah.
Which is big news. Okay, it's not opening.
I guess we'll never know.
Oh, I have it! Oh my god, okay.
Yeah.
So this idea, I watched 2 YouTube video essays that really inspired me. The first one was, I don't remember what it was called, but it was a video about Kirsten Dunst, who was one of my favorite actresses. She was in the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and then she was Marie Antoinette in the Marie Antoinette movie.
Oh,
and then
okay, I know who that is. Yeah.
She was in the Virgin Suicides. I love her so much. And it was about sort of like all the movies she's been in and how she, a lot of directors have muses and stuff like that. And Sofia Coppola, I think that's how you say her name.
Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst was her muse. Like, she was the one who made the Marie Antoinette movie and the Virgin Suicides movie. She's a very well-known in, like, the feminist or just female movie director sort of circle.
Yeah.
Because
she directed the new Priscilla movie.
Yes. Love her so much. I love her work so much. And it's very, I'll get into it, but I wrote this thing. It was originally supposed to be about, I watched another video that inspired me to write all of this stuff down. And it was a video about the girl who played Cassie in Euphoria.
Sydney Sweeney.
It was titled like Sydney Sweeney Needs an Ugly Role. And it was about how pretty women who usually start out as pretty women in movies, like, they're very sexy and like, it is hard for them to break out of that bubble of just being pretty and also not being taken seriously.
Yeah.
So actors like Margot Robbie, she did I, Tonya, and that was her ugly role.
Quote unquote ugly.
Yeah. She did look a little, come on. I watched that movie and I loved it, but like, a lot of people, I mean, like, the movies that she was in was Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And
then Babylon, she was
that was in 2023.
Okay.
I'm talking about like early in her career because people didn't take her seriously. They were just like, look at this hot babe. You know what I mean? And then she did I, Tonya. People were like, okay, she's a good actor.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that. There's another one. The movie's called Monster. It's called Monster. It was made in 2003. And it had Charlize Theron. She played like sexy spy woman and very voluptuous, she was and she couldn't break out of the role. And I think this is one of the most famous of like the cases of.
What about Black Widow?
Pretty
with
women.
Scarlett Johansson.
I still think that Scarlett Johansson hasn't been taken seriously.
Yeah.
And then I got into the idea of the manic pixie dream girl. And I heavy dived. Let me just read this. This is what I've written, sort of. In 2005, a term was coined that would change how men see women in film forever. Nathan Raby, a movie critic, created the term manic pixie dream girl while writing about the movie Elizabethtown. The movie followed a suicidal Drew Baylor, played by Orlando Bloom, who is dealing with the death of his father. It's a romance movie, and like on his way to Oregon, he meets Claire Colburn, who is she's played by Kirsten Dunst, which I think is very important because there's this thing, even Kirsten herself, she talked about this too, about how so many of her movies aren't liked when they originally come out, and then like 15 years later, they're like cult classics. Like, Bring It On. People would say now that is like one of those classic teenage girl movies, but whatever. To sound like any college essay, the dictionary, more so Urban Dictionary, and Raby himself defines the term as that bubbly, shallow, cinematic creature that exists solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to reach broodingly soulful young men to embrace life and its infinite mysteries and adventures. So it's sort of to get men to actually feel emotion and to do things and live life to the fullest. They have to be obsessed with a woman. You know what I mean? And this woman is their savior.
He's just Ken.
This woman is their savior, but it's like that whole Ken thing, I think, was really making fun of this trope.
Yeah.
Because in the end of most of these movies, they don't work out.
And after watching the Barbie movie, and I know it's so outdated now, but after watching it and like really thinking about Ken's character, I see it in like every single guy that I've ever spoken to, or even just stranger. Like this morning, I was walking into my early bird gym, and there was this guy, and he cut in front of me and like swung the door open, but like only enough so he could squeeze through, and just didn't hold the door for me at all, which, I mean, rude.
It was really rude.
And it just kind of shut in my face, and then I opened it, and then I was walking into the gym, and he's like dancing in front of this girl, and she's not even paying any attention to him. The ghost thought that was funny.
So characters like Summer from 500 Days of Summer, Clementine and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Minds, Ramona from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Penny from Almost Famous, Sam in Garden State, Sam in Perks of Being a Wallflower, and Claire from Elizabethtown are all like called those terms. And what I think is even the guy who coined the term has come out and apologized for making it, because it's just broken loose and people have used it to call women who are obviously struggling, and men become so obsessed with them. I think it's I think it's damaging, because then all of this man's livelihood and love and happiness is dependent on one person. And I don't think that is a good thing at all. If you depend on one person to make you happy,
that's so bad.
You're basically setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Especially with these women, because they have, especially like Ramona from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the whole thing is that he really likes her, and she has 7 evil exes that he needs to defeat. And she is so obviously distant and is not ready for love.
Yeah.
And she still loves one of her exes. That's why she moved away. She moved away and she came back because one of her exes she loved so much. And he just like would neglect her, and it was not a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So she had to move away for her own benefit. But yet all of his happiness and all of this is so centered around her, and that's so harmful, not only for him, but for her. Because then all of his friends are going to get, like, this happens in real life too, is like men rely so much on like a love interest that is so obviously not ready or so obvious that they don't want it. It's like, no, you are the one responsible for your feelings, not someone else.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy.
And then there's so much pressure on the girl to be this person.
Yeah.
To be this person that he wants her to be. Yeah. But I mean, obviously she's not.
So then I started going into something that's really, really, really bad, is that there is a very small amount of female directors in the world. And I think that that's bad, because when men direct scenes of that a woman has gone through pain, it almost always has to be physical pain, and it's the craziest scene. But men, it's like, it's just not that bad. You know what I mean? It's just like, I think that there's this weird thing that happens in film where mental illness isn't like an enough reason for women to act this way.
Yeah.
So it has to be
physical pain.
And I think that also shows how this need for society to quote unquote protect women is so unnecessary, because stuff like this happens. If you protect someone from something
and then they get to it, or
they are going to
find a way
or find out what it is, and guess what? They're not going to be ready for it. This has nothing to do with like feminism and women or whatever, but I was watching this really interesting video. I already told you, but it was a video about Icelandic witches and sort of the history of that. It's very, very interesting.
Talk about it.
They came from Norway into Iceland, and they were very pagan, very pagan, very witch, and like the thing was like they were very tolerant of like religion. You know what I mean? You could do your thing.
Yeah. Be free,
which was like really sick. But then like a while goes on, and Denmark, after like the Protestant Reformation, and they try to make everyone Christian and stuff like that, and Iceland is just like, no. And Denmark finally becomes Christian, and they're like, all of my little babies are also gonna turn Christian. And Iceland was like, but then they were like, yeah, so then they started turning more Christian, and then they were like killing witches and stuff like that. It was very interesting. On the topic of witches, there was this book that I want to read, but it's also like, I don't know if it's been
it's banned.
I don't know if it's been transcribed to English, because I think it's in Latin or something, but it's called Malefice Maleficarum, I think. In English, that means Hammer of the Witches, which it's the book that witch hunters use to, number one, tell like how to tell someone's a witch, and then after, what to do.
Oh, I'd read that too. I need to finish Dante's Inferno first.
The book that I bought
only on Canto 2.
Yeah, the book that you like.
I'm getting through it. So what I do is I read a canto, and then I watch a video analysis on that canto, and then I reread it and analyze.
Yeah.
Or not analyze, annotate.
You've never analyzed anything in your life.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I'm teaching you my ways of looking into everything so deeply that I can't like anything normally. It's unfortunate, actually. That's just been my interest. I've been really obsessed with, especially the Marie Antoinette movie. It makes me, I've been thinking about Marie Antoinette a lot recently. I do think about her because, I don't know, it's just so, I did a project of her in sophomore year. That's how much I've thought about her, okay? She was 13 when she was sent from Austria to France. She didn't know any French. Couldn't take anything with her. Like her handmaidens and like, who were like literally her friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I feel like people get mad when you like feel bad for these people because it's like, they were rich. I was like, she was 13. It's not her fault that she's rich. How is she supposed to understand global conflict? She's 13.
Yeah.
And then she marries King Louis.
I can't even understand global conflict,
marries
and I'm 17.
Prince Louis, and then
princess.
His dad dies when she's like 18 or 19, and so she's queen. In the midst of, there's like something going on with Austria, and then France is like the French Revolution.
Yeah.
That big thing. You know what I mean? Because Louis was sending money to America because our revolution was going on. And then obviously, like the reason that the French Revolution happened is because America was like, I mean, the reason why the French Revolution was happening was because the French saw America revolting against the British. Yeah. And we're like, why don't we do it? And then she, unfortunately, they shaved her head off and she lost her head. And
they shaved her head off or shaved her hair off?
Shaved her hair off, and then they chopped off her head. Okay. And her dog was under her skirt, and he wouldn't stop crying over her dead body. And
I didn't know that.
This is a very interesting fact. You know Madame Tussauds, like the woman who makes all the wax figures? She was like that name. She was from like that time. So she was like in it with like royalty and all of the rich people. And she was taken to like Versailles. Like she had known the nobles and she was like sort of like mingle. After Marie Antoinette died, they forced her to make a cast of her face.
After she figure?
Yes.
After her head was chopped off?
They're called death masks. It's very famous. Like, yeah, her and Louis. I could go on and on and on about women in history, but I won't.
I want to start doing song of the episode. I am going to have to say I heard this song today, and I really enjoyed it. Chinatown by Shaky Graves.
I'm going to say Jackie Down the Line by Fontaine's DC. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of Untitled with
Alaina
and Abigail.
Peace out, homies. Peace and love.